Welcome to the Natural History Cupboard. Come on in.
And welcome back to the Natural History Cupboard podcast, the place where the weird and wonderful parts of the natural world come together. I'm your host, Gareth, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Aaron. Aaron, what have you been up to?
Nothing this week.
Oh.
Nothing. Well, not entirely true. There's
breathing, eating, drinking, presumably.
I went to a place in the Midlands.
A mystical place.
Yeah, well, what's mystical about it is it's called the National Forest, and there's not really that much of a forest there.
Isn't that a relatively new one?
Maybe, but
okay.
There's not really much forest there. But what there is a concerningly low regard for the environment. Was or at least what I saw on display was that's not the place itself, but the people in and around it for sure.
Oh, why? What were they doing?
Just a lot of littering and not much observation of what was around them.
Fair enough.
I mean, like recycle bins, like 5 paces away.
That's too much to walk. You can't walk 5. Can't expect people to walk 5 paces if it's not there at the side of you. It's not worth going to, you know. I know what you mean. It's irritating.
Yeah, but there it is.
Well, I had a slightly more interesting week than I had by the sounds of it. Finally went to Wild Place Project, the Bristol Zoo one.
I love that place. Yeah.
See, I wasn't as enamoured as I could be. Now, this is probably for a couple of reasons.
There's not many invertebrates.
I mean, there's no reptiles, invertebrates, or amphibians or fish, which are kind of the things that the main drivers of me going to a zoo.
That's also something the Bristol Zoo did very well.
They also did very well. I was a little bit disappointed with the very small selection of birds. I thought there would actually be more birds there from Bristol Zoo.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what it is. Give that place 10 years and I could see it being amazing because they are clearly putting all the time and the effort and the money into it and building it up. And they've got the space now to be able to do what they want to do. The bear enclosure and the wolverines and the wolves. Didn't see the bears, they were in. But we did see the wolves. And what a wolf enclosure. That was lovely. The wolverines were out and I just like seeing wolverines as well. They're really cool. The other problem I had with the place, it was absolutely freezing when we went.
That's not really their fault.
It's not fault. No. It's just I hate going outside in the winter, and this was it was possibly the coldest and most miserable day, like temperature and just when you think of probably everyone who's not living here in the UK would probably think of British weather being this, where everything is just grey,
wet,
cold. It wasn't wet. Thankfully, it wasn't wet. It was just grey, cold, miserable weather.
So you didn't get the whole British weather bingo.
No. And you know what? Actually, I was talking to Drew about this today. Is we've thankfully had not much of a wet winter compared to previous years. So we've actually had just what we should have, which is a cold, dry winter. We've had some rain, obviously, but it's been a lot more actual, like what it should be winter-wise. But no, it's something that I can't wait to see what happens in years to come. It was I think it was just a bad cold day. But the bears, the wolverines, the wolves, absolutely stunning enclosures. Didn't see the lynx either, but I kind of didn't expect to see the lynx. They're
the ones that are in.
Scotland, yeah. Oh well, but
they weren't, by the way.
No. Actually, apart from that, the one thing that actually sort of really made the day a nice ending is we went to the Lego shop as well because we're right nenext to Cribbs Causeway, so couldn't not go to the Lego shop. But yeah, apart from that, we've been doing student assessments at the college.
What fun!
It is always fun, yeah. And that's all been outside, so it's been freezing weather for that as well. So I had a very cold week, actually. It's nice to be indoors.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah. Shall we move into the news?
Let's do it.
news!
Okay, well, we're into this week's news. Aaron, what are we looking at this week?
So first up, our first article comes to us from The National, which is a news source in Scotland. And the article's headline is Wild Boars Dumped Illegally Loose in Highlands Close to Lynxside. So when the lynx were released and I said, we haven't heard the last of this.
Was that someone's vain hope to get them to eat the boar or something?
But I don't know. But basically, a small herd of wild boar have been released up in Scotland.
They'll be a lot harder to catch than any lynx.
Yes, they will be. And I can't remember how many of them are. But it's basically 12 miles from Kingassy, which is essentially
in the same area.
Were dropped. So yeah.
So my first one comes from CNN. I thought I'd do the dodgy voice because a rare deep sea fish monster has been. I'm just going to stop that now. Researchers of the NGO Condric Tenerife, there you go, did the thing right.
Well done.
Have captured what they say to be the first images of an adult black sea devil towards the surface. It's an anglerfish, basically. The one that you tend to think of when you think of anglerfish. It's been spotted in the surface waters. The group Condric Tenerife are basically a ray and shark conservation group that help to protect them and have got some fantastic. I'll try that again. And have managed to snap some fantastic images of this otherwise never seen fish, basically, because it lives at such an incredible depth in the dark, where it utilizes that lovely, little light that pulls in things to it for it to eat. So, do you want a random anglerfish fact for you as well? Because males and females have such a hard time finding each other in the dark, in the depths, the males are tiny as well. When they mate with the females, they actually fuse to the female and essentially melt into her and just become a pair of gonads attached to her, allowing her to breed.
It's a weird.
That's a very odd relationship. It's a very, very, very dependent relationship, that one, you know.
Yeah. Not great.
No.
Not great. So my next article comes to us from BBC, and in keeping on on theme with my first one.
Oh, I thought you were gonna also do a pirate accent.
No. The article's headline is Swinney rules out return of lynx to Scotland. So John Swinney is actually the First Minister for Scotland, and he's already not making a good impression on conservationists. But good news for the NFU, they've all got sore wrists because he's basically made comments at an NFU conference in which he said that the reintroduction of lynx or any other, this is the key part, any other carnivorous species will never happen under his government. So Scotland, kick him out.
Basically. Shall we go from one politician to another? Although I can
predict who this one is.
I can beat your politician with this one.
If we're not careful, every news article of the headline,
it could very easily.
The whole year could be easily this dope.
Yep. So the tangerine and chief, oh my God, it's even hard to just bother with the jokes at this point. Basically, this morning, Trump has now made an executive order to ban paper straws over plastic ones because apparently, and this is something I've never got, when you go to, say, McDonald's or any other fast food restaurant, do you sit there and drink your drink out of a straw, or do you just, I don't know, take the lid off and drink it like a big boy?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm just going to throw this wild thing out here, but as a 38-year-old, I don't need a straw.
Exactly.
And this is the most pointless change anyone has ever made in the whole sad, long history of pointless changes.
Yeah.
You've gotten rid of straws, and now you get of plastic straws for paper straws. Everybody uses straws if they're over the age of 6.
I will say that paper straws themselves are awful because they just melt in the drink. But you shouldn't need to use them.
And this coming from the same guy who's photographed on an airplane eating a Big Mac with a knife and fork. He's about as out of touch with reality of eating food as anyone could be. Uh, the whole we could take up the entire episode moaning over this, but
it's one of the least offensive and damaging environmental things that he has done of late.
Which is frightening.
Yes,
actually.
which is quite frightening. Plastic straws, getting rid of them was a good idea because they end up in the ocean and for various different reasons that there's no need for them. The only reasons I can think of plastic straws being of any use for was for making science experiments where you sort of like using them to blow up a balloon or some sort of that's the only practical use I can think of them. Other than there's just no need for them. Literally no need for them. There's no need for paper straws. Drink your drink out of a cup. You can use a paper cup and drink out of a paper cup.
I even asked McDonald's staff not to
I
give
always
me
do the
a
same.
straw. I don't want a straw.
Yeah,
I'm
and they just
38 years
they
old. I
hand
don't
them
need a
to
straw.
you. They throw them at you. You can't tell them to stop.
I'm sorry. At the risk of alienating people, if you are over the age of 6 and you're this offended by straws, you are probably a problem.
Yeah. Also,
talking environmentally, talking at a much baser level than that.
Also, I'd like to point out, still the Gulf of Mexico.
Yes.
You can change it on a map as much as you want, but it was made the Gulf of Mexico in the 16th century, so...
Do you think, like, if he actually gets his way with Greenland, is he going to rename it to the Red, White and Blue Land? Because the moron can't tell why it was named Greenland.
I think he's still jealous that he wasn't able to be the one who came up with the con to get people to move there in the first place. Was it Eric the Red?
Yeah.
Basically, if you're unaware of why Greenland, one of the coldest and most snow-covered parts of the world, is called Greenland, and Iceland is actually quite green. It's because it was the biggest real estate con that's ever happened, I'd say. Eric the Red, the Viking, who basically convinced a bunch of people to go there because he said it would be this lovely green land where everyone would be able to farm and do whatever they want. And they did exactly that. They went there and then realized, hang on a minute. There's seals and polar bears and walruses here.
The wool pulled over our eyes.
By which point, Eric's probably pulled the boat away from the island and gone, bye! Anyway, that's a minor rant over with.
Yeah.
But,
from one rant to another. This time it's not politics, although I suppose it is to an extent. Basically, this is quite local news, so forgive me if you're not in Britain, but also most people in Britain aren't going to kind of relate to this quite as much. But Pine Martins on Exmoor. The team behind this, or rather the kind of alliance behind this, are looking for local people's input in Pine Martins, their return to North Devon. Now, the reason why I chose this is because, firstly, to put it out there, if there's any North Devonian people here listening or watching us on YouTube, get your say now, because there are a lot of antis that are going to block this, and there's also what I've been surprised by. There's a lot of actual pro wildlife, anti kind of the normal kind of like pheasant shoot type people who are also against this for really illogical reasons.
Is it because they don't get enough paper straws?
No, maybe it seems to be a misunderstanding of the plan. So these, just for the sake of argument, it came up that some basically on one of the local Facebook pages.
Well, always a bastion of truth and knowledge. Yeah.
Bastion of truth. Someone posted up a picture of a dead fox. It had died. Don't know why, but it had died near one of the children's play parks. Someone made a sarcastic comment that the ground nesting birds would be happy about this, and the first response to it was, well, they won't be when the Pine Martins are reintroduced. Well, Pine Martins are not going all over North Devon, okay? They're going in very specific habitats that are that they've evolved to fill. They are not
Like
going
trees, for instance.
Yes, they're not going into local play parks where children will be. And
Do
I
people
just
think
wanted
that
to
their kids are going to get taken by a pine marten?
no, but they think that they probably do in this country, but they do worry about the ground nesting birds. Now,
There's a lot of them in play parks.
yeah, I've pulled this up I've pulled this up with several people when I've seen them worrying about the native ground nesting birds. I've then said, "Can you
Name one.
share with me what your feelings are on pheasants, please?"
Yeah.
Because pheasants are attacking our ground nesting live bearing adders to the point that the adders are going extinct. And also, by the way, if we haven't said it enough on this podcast, pheasants are invasive. Pine martens are native and they're natural, and with all natural things, they'll find their balance.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to bring that to people's attention. It's a local bit of news, but it's an important one. If you're from North Devon, please get out there, get your voice heard, and support this effort to bring the pine marten back to North Devon. It's really important.
We'll always give that a good thing. I don't think there's a single thing wrong with having pine martens back. And I can't wait for the day when I see them in children's play parks dominating the slide. So, my final article is from the BBC, and it's Minister blames monkey for Sri Lanka's nationwide power cut.
Good old politicians.
I do love a good scapegoating story on this, but a nationwide blackout in Sri Lanka has been blamed on a monkey that intruded into a power station south of Colombo. The power is gradually being restored across the island nation of 22 million people, with medical facilities and water purification plants being obviously given priority. The monkey apparently came into contact with the grid transformer, causing an imbalance in the system. I think what that means is the monkey jumped on some live wires and probably didn't come out the other side.
I was going to say, I think it might have caused an imbalance in his system.
Yes. It was also described the rogue monkey. They've tried
the rogue monkey or the roast monkey?
They tried to make it that, somehow this monkey has done this maliciously.
Of course, it's politicians versus wildlife.
A rogue monkey knocked out Sri Lanka's entire power grid after triggering a total failure at a substation in Colombo. Basically, one monkey equals total chaos. Time to rethink infrastructure was put on Twitter, by several people. And yeah, I suppose that might be a time to rethink your nation's power infrastructure if one monkey can bring that whole thing down. So he might have been a terrorist monkey, we don't know. But if anything, it actually means that they probably should look at, I don't know, fencing the area a bit better. If that happens from one monkey flying into a wire or something, it's
local politicians were heard saying if he wasn't cooked, he would have been arrested. But meanwhile, enjoy this fried monkey drumstick.
I wouldn't put it past local politicians, local authorities to go, right, well, that's an excuse. We need to cull the monkey population, which would be the exact wrong thing to do in this situation. We joke, obviously, but we obviously don't want to see a monkey getting fried on a power station.
No.
These things do happen, but yeah, for it to take out an entire country's power grid it's not your everyday occurrence, I suppose. So yeah, that's my final story. But Aaron, what do you got?
Well, that just about wraps it up for the headlines. But I'm interested in this next one. I've deliberately not told you what this is. I've just told
Interesting.
I've just told you that we're going to be opening up the pop culture corner for this because I think this is one that this will be one of those rare news articles, rare discussion topics that we'll disagree on.
Okay.
So, Gareth, we've now had one teaser spot and a trailer at the Super Bowl for Jurassic World Rebirth.
Should have stayed dead. That's my view on it.
Now, I'm of several different minds on this, but all of my minds will probably, I'll probably get a whole load of disagreement from the Paleo Society and the Awesome Bros Society, because I'm going to offend everybody on both sides.
Don't tell me you like the look of this ugly D-Rex awful
I don't. The only thing
hybrid thing.
I don't have an opinion on it.
Okay.
But what I do have an opinion on
Is
is
the
that
Spinosaurus?
everybody keeps no, not yet, because
Because they're wrong.
but like you can't really see anything. This is like a few weeks ago. Did you see the Superman trailer?
No.
Right. In the Superman trailer, he takes flight, and they're trying to cash in on this like the sports action a bit like GoPro.
Okay.
Now, when the GoPro is that close to your face, it kind of distorts like your proportions a bit.
Yeah.
So Superman looks like he's got an eye.
That might be the new look. You never know.
So, and it's caused uproar because people don't understand how fisheye lenses work. But there it is. Now, my thing with this is that you've got seconds, like not even a second, of these Spinosaurs and other dinosaurs to be able to judge anything by. But what you can judge by is the entire kind of following that the Jurassic franchise has. You've got kind of the awesome bros that just like real dinosaurs aren't cool.
So just smack my toy dinosaurs together.
I love Jurassic Park so much that these are the real dinosaurs, and no amount of scientific evidence you bring before me will ever change it. T-Rex will always beat Spinosaur. My wrists are getting sore.
The ones that basically want Godzilla and animals to fight.
Yes. And then you've got the paleontologists that complain about the accuracy. Now,
hi.
I'm
well. I wish I could say I was a paleontologist, but
I'm the demon in between because I don't give a rat's
behind
about what the awesome bros think. I think paleo accuracy is cooler than a lot of pop culture versions of it. But what I also think is that this franchise, from the very go, everyone who likes Jurassic Park and then complains about the D-Rex really needs to go back and watch Jurassic Park again. Because from the get-go, these were never dinosaurs. The Jurassic franchise is not a dinosaur franchise. It's not even a dinosaur film. And that's where Jurassic Park 3 goes so wrong, because it actually forgets the whole point of the franchise, which is human hubris and the dangers.
They breed the largest and most dangerous psychotic creature, the Spinosaurus, on that island.
Yes, but that was just for... They didn't put that message in there. All they put in was, this dinosaur's bigger than T-Rex and they're all killing T-Rex. Which, by the way, who cares? It's a film. I actually didn't like that movie way before that. I didn't even know.
I didn't like it before it wasn't cool to just like.
I didn't even know that fight took place till I watched it on DVD years later. Anyway,
this was in like the first half an hour of the film.
Unfortunately, before that, what happens is a Velociraptor that Alan Grant would never have nightmares about appears on a.
All right. I will say the continuity of that is wrong, because it's of a raptor that he's never seen.
Exactly.
But I will argue, and this is where this is going to start going off the rails. He's talking to the parrot in a previous scene, who says, say my name, say Alan.
Yeah, but
the parrot
you're talking about the talking, not about the raptor. Yeah, this is a man who in Jurassic Park 1 said it's just like a bird, 6 foot turkey and all that, and then is imagining a Jurassic, not a Velociraptor, a Jurassic Park Velociraptor with
he's seen a previous raptor.
He's not seen
the first raptors.
I told you we'd disagree on this.
Yeah. But I know I agree that he shouldn't be seeing a Jurassic Park 3 raptor. He should be seeing an original Jurassic Park raptor. But talking to him, I've got no issue with.
No, I never said it, but I'm not worried about the talking. Yeah. That made sense. It only didn't make sense if you weren't paying attention earlier on in the film.
Yeah.
But my
what if the whole thing was a dream? The whole film.
Well, then we could forget about it. Thank you. I find Jurassic Park 3 more offensive than Dominion, and Dominion was painful.
So come on, make your defense for this new one then.
So my defense for this new one is that these creatures, they were always monsters. They were always hybrids. They were always hybridized animals, even before you get to Indominus Rex and Indoraptor, which again are two.
I don't mind the Indominus Rex. I quite like it as a dinosaur.
I don't mind any of it because they're just as much. See, I don't have a problem with the dinosaurs. I don't have a problem with the Spinosaur in Jurassic Park 3. I have a problem with the stories.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
For
It's the
me,
shortest of the three. And then
Jurassic
it's Overlord.
Park. You've got Jurassic Park. You've got the Lost World, and then you've got Jurassic World, and then none of the others exist for me because the story is so diabolically poor through those three that I can't, and it's such a shame because the franchise itself is so strong. And I think firstly, Scarlett Johansson and Mahershala Ali,
I'm looking forward to seeing them in it.
they are two
They
people
look
who
like good actors.
they're good actors and they're very picky about the products that they're in. Also, I happened to have read an interview with them where they actually say how much of a Jurassic Park fan they were as kids. But anyway, that's not really important. The important thing is all these complaints about these dinosaurs. Like you've got the paleontologist saying that's not what Spinosaurus looks like, and then you've got the awesome bros going, that's not what our Spinosaurus looks like.
Can I make the point?
Hybrid.
Can I make the point though that it is wrong? Like,
yeah,
the Spinosaurus in the limited amount of footage that we have looks bad. Its neck is way too short, way too thick, way too short. Also, and I love the fact that we have a model here. In the footage, you see a large hole at the back of its head here.
Yeah.
That's not the ear. This is called the temporal fenestra.
Yes.
This is where the jaw muscles attach to allow this thing to come down and bite on you. So if it's got a hole here, its jaw is just flopping down. It's not doing anything.
I completely agree with you.
The rest of the skull looks wrong as well. It just looks too fat. Spinosaurus, no one really understands how thin a Spinosaurus's skull actually is. It's like that thin in cross section.
If you imagine the dinosaur equivalent to a gharial.
Yeah, they really are. They've got incredibly long, thin, and tall jaws, which allow them to catch fish and other smaller animals, I suppose.
If you've not seen this trailer, the Spinosaurus is very robust, way too robust.
Far too robust.
But let's wind it back a few films.
Well,
Jurassic Park.
I would much rather Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus because, despite the inaccuracies in that, it was accurate at the time.
Yes. But
I would much rather the look of that thing.
Two points on the Spinosaurus alone. Firstly, the awesome bros are also up in arms against this because it doesn't look like their version of Spinosaurus.
I can go with that, yeah, to an extent.
Also, for all of those people like Gareth here complaining that the Spinosaurus doesn't look like Spinosaurus,
it just looks bad.
Velociraptor,
but at least
does not look like Velociraptor.
No, I know, but at least they look. My biggest problem with
bear in mind, all you've seen is the sail poking out the water.
Yeah,
and potentially, if that is a Spinosaur, its arm up its neck to the head.
Its arms up here. My problem with all of the Jurassic World films is as soon as they went away from the first 3 films, it's like they went, what colour should we make the dinosaurs? Grey. Just grey. Everything grey.
But apart from the film, it's almost all grey. Apart from the
T-Rex is brown. The Velociraptors.
It's so very difficult to see that brown.
Yeah, I will admit that. But they've still got a certain amount of colour to them. They're quite drab. But
Lost World is the only one where you actually get the ones where you actually see them nice and colourful.
The raptors in Jurassic Park 3.
Yeah, but we don't include that because it's crap.
No. They've got there's a white one with tiger stripes. There's a darker one.
There's Dalmatian.
There's that lovely sort of 3-tone stripe running down them. Mm-hmm. The Spinosaurus is red, black, and white. There's real colour variation. The only sort of drab-looking ones are the pteranodons in that film, which don't make sense because they've got teeth. Because pteranodon literally means no teeth.
But not a thick set Spinosaur.
I don't like them in that, but the look of those pteranodons are better than any pteranodon in the rest of the franchise.
No, I refuse that. Lost World had better pteranodons
because it lands like a bird, and it has a neck like a bird, which they don't have.
But it still looked better than the Jurassic Park 3 ones.
No, they land better.
I'm not talking about how I'm not talking about their mobility.
Proportions.
I'm talking about the look, the lack of teeth.
I'll give you the lack of teeth thing. That's fine. But the look of those things, they're huge as well. They're nowhere near the sort of proportional size.
As well.
That's what I mean. Those
Okay.
ones are far too thick set. They've got huge, thick legs. They're much too big to be able to actually be what they are. I mean, the Quetzalcoatlus in Dominion or whatever is all right. I think it looks better than this one, and I like what somebody else has said, that you could probably just get away with calling it a Hatzegopteryx, and just go with that, and it wouldn't make any difference because then you don't have to change the thing. My other issue I have as well is the titanosaurs that you see in the trailer. They've got these two random little frills on their back in two different places. One on their head.
Titanosaurs. I saw what species they were.
Someone's saying titanosaur. They look like a titanosaur cross between a Diplodocus and a titanosaur. They're nothing specific, and I know they're not real in paleo accuracy, but they don't need to have a little fish fin on the back of them. It's like you've gone Amargasaurus. Check, throw a bit of that in there. Diplodocus for the tail, throw that in. Titanosaur, throw that in. I get one vibe from seeing those, and that's Ark, which is just stick some bits on it. That makes it look cooler.
Yeah.
It's cool now. It's got bits on it. It's got a frill. It's got a bit here. It's got bits there.
It's got bits. It's everywhere.
You can enough. Stop adding stuff to it. Now, put the glue gun down.
We don't know if the film's going to be any good, and if the story of the film is good, all these aesthetic things will not matter one iota. My point entirely is that the things that people complain about in this trailer, you're seeing it for just microseconds, and they're all things that people don't bother about with the other films.
True. I have my issues with all the films. I have issues with all of them, but I'm hoping what comes of this is it's a Sonic moment. That they've released this as a sort of throw a little bit and see what happens. Okay, people don't like this. Quick, change the look of it. I'm hoping it's a Sonic moment.
Who did Sonic? Do you know what studio? Was it Paramount?
Yes.
And Jurassic Park is
Universal.
The only reason I said it, I don't know this for sure, but I have a feeling that Sonic was done on purpose. I think it was already had the Sonic design.
It was rage baiting.
Yeah,
to try and get people to go, oh my god, and it drives that hype. It was
everybody complained about Marvel and DC and Star Wars at the time that it wasn't what it should be, and so I think the people at Paramount, I think they deliberately leaked that version of Sonic, knowing that really in the film it's going to look like this, to get people to think, oh, they're actually listening to the fans. We're going to get on board with them.
But I'm kind of hoping that's what's happening here. It's a bit of rage baiting because they know that the community is basically as carnivorous as the animals that they are badly portraying.
I will say that, like I say, it's a trailer. That's all it is. I don't know if the movie's going to be good or anything like that. I will say I did like the look of the T-Rex. That green shade with the
I get that this is being completely redesigned in some ways. His head just looks a bit too big.
The other thing we got
color scheme wise, I like the look of it. Yes.
The other thing is that this is an island of rhines,
which makes no sense as well because they've somehow retconned that this is the lab that was in the first Jurassic Park for the first island, yet it's nowhere near the 5 deaths. It's on because the 5 deaths are in the Pacific off the coast of Costa Rica, whereas this, according to the trailer, is near Barbados, which is in the Caribbean.
That's interesting.
So you've now just got a bunch of islands spread all over the place.
They were marketing it as Site C, which sometimes gets bled in as the actual site where Wu and Hammond did the first dinosaur clones.
That's Isla Tucano.
I think so, yeah.
Or Isla Matanceros. I think it might be Matanceros.
Matanceros, yeah.
God, we're going deep nerdy here.
Deep lore.
Which, if you actually want to learn more about the islands, the best game for doing that was, and I love the sort of lore that they gave to it as well, was the Jurassic World game, the Jurassic World Evolution.
Oh, the park building.
It's really good. Where you basically built parks on all the different islands, which was nice. It was all right. it had its limitations, but it's made by the same people, Frontier, who make Planet Zoo.
So yeah,
It's not as good as Planet Zoo, but it certainly shows what they can do. And the dinosaurs that you get in it are quite good.
if I remember right, Jurassic World Evolution's limitations were in its licensing agreement, so you couldn't customize it.
You couldn't make the buildings what you wanted now because of that.
We've gone on about this too long now, but the one last thing I want to say is I don't have an opinion on the monster at the end, but what I will say is that they are all monsters. And according to something I read somewhere,
some monsters are better than others.
So, well, for monsters that are better than others, this one is supposedly based on the Rancor from Star Wars,
the Xenomorph,
the Alien Queen, and Rexy or Roberta, if you're into the deep lore.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good basis to go off.
It looks more like a Rancor cross alien than it does a T-Rex.
Did you ever play Star Wars: The Force Unleashed?
No, I would have liked to. Wait, sorry, that's
with Galen Marek.
Yes, I played the first
Starkiller.
Yeah.
There's more deep lore. If you didn't know where Starkiller Base got its name from, it's this guy who played also voices Darth Maul and all sorts of stuff. Anyway, in the second game, somewhere near the start, I think, you fight something that looks like a super duper steroid abusing Rancor.
I remember that actually.
And that's what this creature reminds me of. It reminds me of that, plus with Cloverfield.
Yeah, and a bit of cave troll in there as well. Why not? Just throw a bit of everything in.
A cave troll. Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah, let's go to this week's creature feature.
It's the creature feature.
So I'd like to start our journey this week, as we have many times before on the podcast, in the Permian era, an era of which I think is just fascinating, so much more than some parts of the Mesozoic because of its cast of incredibly odd creatures. So what we can see before us is a river system that's been greatly depleted by many months of drought. What remains of the water is just a trickle down the center of what should be a flourishing riparian ecosystem. On the riverbank, we can see shriveled up and dying off plants that are clearly lacking water because they're getting the last of it there. Off into the distance, we can see nothing but scrub and dry ground as far as the eye can see, stretching out into sand dunes in some areas. As we look closer at this riverbank, though, or what was the riverbank, we can see an apex predator for this time furiously digging into the side of this riverbank. It's a Dimetrodon, an animal we've covered before in previous episodes. It looks hungry, and it's furiously sniffing and digging at the side of this riverbank into a hole. And it can be seen panicking as basically it doesn't appear to have eaten or drunk for many, many days, until eventually it hits pay dirt. We see it push its head deeper into the hole as all of a sudden the earth gives away. With a bit of thrashing motion, it pulls out a small salamander creature about only a meter long. Now, this amphibian is odd even for Permian-era wildlife because it has a boomerang-shaped head, which doesn't mean much to our very hungry Dimetrodon, who quickly munches down and bites off the front of its nose and kills it in one bite. Now, this hungry predator returns to this hole a multitude of times and eventually pulls out at least 3 more of these creatures and is a rather messy eater, leaving pieces of them scattered in what remains of the burrow. In a weird twist of fate, these creatures' remains will actually become fossilized with up to 8 other Diplocauluses, the species we are looking at today. The bodies will pile up in this burrow with a juvenile Eriops as well, another Permian-era amphibian. So this cluster of juvenile boomerang-head salamanders will be found stacked together and suggest that they occupied the burrow at the same time. And the damage of 3 of these fossils show that basically one had its nose bitten clean off, taking part of the brain with it. Now, another 5 of these boomerang-headed creatures survived this Dimetrodon attack and probably perished shortly after during the rest of the dry season with this Eriops in this burrow as well. But this amazing fossil will be found millions of years later in the sandstone of the Craddock bone bed in Baylor County, Texas. And a really stunning fossil of basically bits and pieces of these poor things that were bitten to death by a Dimetrodon, which we know it was a Dimetrodon because apparently, as in one report of this, referring to the paleontologist Bob Barker, he said that the ground was littered like bullet casings with Dimetrodon teeth that had basically been shed by this being such a popular area for them to come at some point.
It's the right place in the world for them.
Yeah.
Well, it's within the range of them, yeah.
So, what on earth is Diplocaulus? Well, Diplocaulus, meaning double stalk, is an extinct genus of leptospondyle amphibians, which are a group of amphibians that basically look like modern-day salamanders, although, as in the case of this one, it has a very unique shaped head. They live from the late Carboniferous to the late Permian in North America and parts of northern Africa. Now, there are 5 known species of Diplocaulus, with the type specimen being Diplocaulus salamanderoides. Can you guess why it's called salamanderoides? It doesn't take a huge amount to obviously figure that out.
No.
However, when we picture this animal, we're most likely looking at Diplocaulus magnicornis, which was the first specimen to actually have the iconic head to be found. So the discoveries of these fossils have been varied over an amount of time, and through a bit of deep digging into some museum records, I was actually able to find some numbers of specimens as well. So fossils of Diplocaulus have been found in rocks dating to the Permian era of Morocco in one occasion so far. In the United States, 54 times from New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas. And fossils from the Carboniferous era from the US have been found 4 times in Illinois, Kansas, and Pennsylvania. So it had a fairly decent spread over its sort of range, and that's over a vast amount of time, about 50 million years, giving us a total of 60 collections, including 74 occurrences where they've been basically found. Now, the name of the person who discovered them may be familiar to you by this point. It's Edward Drinker Cope. This wasn't one that came up during the Bone Wars, but certainly could have dominated, I think, in some ways. He was actually the one who described the first specimen, which wasn't actually found by him. It was found in a site near Danville, Illinois in 1877. And this was Diplocaulus salamanderoides. Its name comes from the fact that the pieces that were found and brought to Cope resembled that of a large salamander, and the name stuck. But it was essentially just pieces of vertebra, nothing over the top. And to Cope, he basically saw that it was probably just a large prehistoric salamander. Had no idea about the head at this point. It would be sometime later, in 1882, that the most common and well-described member of the genus Diplocaulus magnicornis would be found and described by Cope also. Now, the fossil of this animal were more than just the vertebrae. In fact, the species gives us that iconic boomerang head, as I said, and allowed Cope and other paleontologists to realize the true form of Diplocaulus as this bizarre amphibian species that just looks amazing. I don't think it looks that odd at all, but
no, I don't think so. I think it looks cool, actually.
Yeah,
I've always wondered if you throw it, would it come back?
Don't know. Probably wouldn't.
Would it knock out a kangaroo?
Probably wouldn't want to come back to you because you've gone, why have you thrown me away? But the species name magnicornis, which means large horns, is essentially describing what the head looks like. Now, much of the modern knowledge of this genus is based on this species. Even though it's not the type specimen, it is by far the most numerous of any of them. And the fossils of this species vastly outnumber all of the other Diplocaulus species. And it had a massively wide temporal range throughout the red beds of Texas, and Oklahoma. They're also rather unfortunate meal at the very beginning of this particular creature feature. Now, what's with the head? You might be wondering what on earth an animal would evolve to have a boomerang-shaped head, not so you could throw it. The usage of the head of Diplocaulus has been theorized ever since the first fossils of it were brought to Cope in 1882. Now, some of the theories that have been floated over time include, and we'll start off with the more bizarre ones, it would have made an excellent ability to burrow and escape predators, basically a shovel, which Unlikely. The horns may have supported skin flaps that would have helped Diplocaulus move more like a stingray or a skate.
What, as in when it's swimming?
As in, sort of, yeah.
That's an interesting.
So imagine basically Diplocaulus and then add some skin flaps right way down the side. Doesn't really pan out because it doesn't move in the same way that a stingray does. But it looked very cool. The horns may have been used for supporting vertical pouches that protected gills. So external gills, a bit like an axolotl.
Yeah.
It could have acted like a hydrofoil, allowing the boomerang-shaped head to basically allow it to skim along the top of the water at speed. Now, that is getting closer to what it might be. Unfortunately, these theories have little evidence to basically back them up, and some of the more likely theories of what the horns on the head would be used for include acceleration. Diplocaulus could have potentially tilted its head upwards whilst moving through the water column and may have actually helped accelerate it upwards towards its prey, a bit like a plane's wing. And if you think about it, it does look a bit like a jet fighter wing.
It does.
If you just took its head off.
Like an aerofoil.
Yeah. Remember that. Good use of the word there. So, could have...
Are we coming full circle to being used like a boomerang?
No. It could have also been used for defense, making them harder to swallow. And there's no denying that head is going to be hard to get into your mouth if you're trying to eat one of these animals.
Unless you're a Dimetrodon, you just bite.
And then you just bite half the face off. Yes, so it does have its problems. If you're silly enough to try and swallow this thing whole, you're going to struggle. So it may have made it less appealing to predators to try and eat. I'm thinking really big fish, I suppose, might be the way. It may have also acted as a counterweight, allowing them to lift the front of their head a lot quicker to basically spring up and grab things. Or it could have also been sexual selection and as a display feature to basically show off to rivals. The jury's still not 100% out on the exact use of the horns. However, in a really interesting paper from the 1980s, it was proposed that the horns themselves acted as a hydrofoil, not skimming along the surface of the water, not a boomerang, allowing the animal to move more easily and control how the water flowed over its head.
Yeah.
To test this, the South African team that were basically carrying this out built a full-scale model of the head and a portion of the body. The model was placed in a wind tunnel to basically simulate being in water because the dynamics are somewhat similar. And they subjected the model to several tests to determine drag, lift, and other forces experienced by the head in different situations. Now, the results showed that the horns generated significant lift, which would allow the animal to rise in the water column quickly up and basically, go upwards and come at their prey.
Yeah.
Quite quickly and easily. And obviously, the less effort you've got to put into things, the better you can be.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that it sounds a bit like not only the lift factor, but also that it would have a little bit of a counter to water resistance.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen those? They're like personal kind of underwater jets.
Yes, and they've got a little
them, and it's basically like you're holding onto a Diplocaulus skull.
Yeah,
and it's got two little propellers on either side. And you just can
tilt it.
Yes, and that's what I'm imagining.
Yeah,
now.
That's quite,
as opposed to a boomerang.
Fair enough. So lift was present when the head was parallel to the flow of water. So they're even getting lift if they're just keeping their head level.
Yeah.
So that's quite useful.
The use in that, yeah.
So it was modelled by air, obviously, as I said. But when the lift increased at a higher attack angle, so basically when the head started to come up above the horizontal, and only dropped once the head had reached sort of a stall angle of 22 degrees. And if you know anything about what's called Bernoulli's principle, which is the air current going over and underneath the wing, creating drag and lift, and pulling the wing up because of that, you'll start to see that obviously when you get to a certain point with a plane wing, you'll never see planes flying straight up. They don't do what rockets can do. They have to go at an angle. Otherwise, there's no wing to grab onto the air and they stall and fall out of the air.
Or if you're into like Formula One or sports cars, essentially the spoiler on the back of those cars is essentially an airplane wing turned upside down.
To create force, jam force. Yeah.
Basically suck you to the floor.
Physics. So this is the same as a plane wing, and the lift and pitching movement was minimized to 1.5 degrees below the horizontal, which may have actually been the neutral resting angle of the head. So only very slightly below the exact horizontal. So they may have just had it slightly drooped. So just to make sure that they weren't always lifting out of the water, because that'd be really irritating. I'm going to walk over the. Oh, I'm at the top again.
If they're on the riverbank and a strong gust of wind came, end up in South America.
True. Maybe that's how they got there. Yeah. So
spinning.
When the mouth of the model as well was opened, the lift was barely affected. Right. Drag only slightly increased, and this indicates that Diplocaulus would not have been seriously disadvantaged if it chose to attack prey items whilst rising up through the water column. And scientists undertaking this study as well also looked at the close relatives of Diplocaulus, another oddly shaped leptospondal amphibian, Diplocaulus, which had a slightly different shape to its head, not as boomerang
frisbee.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, okay. And found that it should have actually been that one should have been suited to slower moving water, whereas the wing shape of Diplocaulus may have actually been better adapted for life in faster flowing streams. So you have what's called niche partitioning.
Yeah, but also, I mean, that when you take into consideration the aerofoil element and those habitats, now you start to see why. It's quite self-explanatory, really.
Yeah, I mean, let's say the jury is not 100% out, but I think that is probably the most likely reason why
I'm bought into this. I'm bought into this.
I like it as well. I mean, I do also think there's a certain amount of sexual selection in this to have got to that point, but also feature doesn't evolve in an animal without it being beneficial to some degree. So
this is all fitting together nicely. Like you have all the right pieces of the puzzle.
So based on what we know about this animal's weird shaped head and the fact that it was not a boomerang, and that its remains are so common in the environment, it also suggests a few things. The first being that there was just not some sort of evolutionary freak that just popped out of nowhere and then disappeared because it was of no use whatsoever. The remains of this genus have been found from the Carboniferous right the way through to the late Permian era, a massive 50 million year time span. So that is on a par with some of the most successful animals on the planet being around. And as with a lot of species at this point, change was happening very rapidly. If you didn't adapt, you went extinct. And even if you did adapt, you probably went extinct. It wasn't called the Great Dying for no reason. It's clear that these animals were thriving in rivers and streams, hunting towards the water's surface, probably rushing up and grabbing small insects or small fish. And that's backed up as well by the fact that their eyes, being positioned on the top of their head, would have also given them an advantage on sort of great white sharks sort of coming up from underneath, grabbing their prey style of hunting. Although you don't really think of these guys and great white sharks in the same vein.
I was kind of thinking that, like, this little big salamander coming up. Yeah.
Would be quite fun. Just a little meter long thing.
Got to be careful that he doesn't go too hard up, because if he breaks the water surface and catches a wind,
well, he's gone. Yeah, he's gone. So using this wing shape to basically give them significant lift in the water, allowing them to rush upwards with their long tail as well, propelling them upwards to grab food with their quite sharp little teeth. And we don't have to look too far when it comes to the ferocity of amphibians, which is not something that most people tend to associate with amphibians in general. You don't think of ferocious animals and little cute frogs and toads. But if you've ever seen a frog or a toad attacking their prey, they do it with ferocity. They just don't have the physical features to back it up, you know.
Yeah.
They don't have huge teeth and claws to show off, but they'll go at things with the ferocity of a tiger. So unless you're terrified of these creatures and have rhinophobia or something like that, they don't really strike fear in the hearts of many. However, given an amphibian a chance, it will grab its prey and lunge and swallow it just as much as any large crocodile. And in fact, I can speak to some degree on this because one of the amphibians that I work with is a salamander, which is very closely related in some aspects to our lovely boomerang-shaped creature from this week. It is a tiger salamander who, well, basically she thinks she's a crocodile. She lunges at her food in the exact same way. Now, she may look at you with her derpy smile and her eyes pointing off to the side, but in her heart, I know that she's a killer. And if it weren't for the catastrophic events of the Great Dying, we may have seen some of these creatures basically live through into the Mesozoic. And I would love to think that in a weird twist of fate, if we'd have been very, very lucky, we could have had one of these boomerang-shaped salamanders lunging out of the water at you to basically grab food, which I think would have been awesome.
I think so too. It sounds like a really successful kind of build out. The only reason I can think of that it wouldn't have kind of convergently evolved again is that all the salamanders now are so small, and there's no need nor any ability to grow that big.
You can blame the crocodiles for that because shortly after the end of the Permian era, that's when we get, the crocodilian lineage of Rausuchians and Pseudosuchians basically specking out and becoming everything. And even the dinosaurs didn't get a look in initially.
No.
And even then, the crocodiles have basically dominated that terrestrial, dominated that, river and aquatic ecosystem for millions of years afterwards. So yeah, amphibians basically lost out. Some of the last ones would have been things like Coolosuchus, which basically lived on in areas where crocodiles didn't get to at that point. So yeah, it's sad to think that we no longer have our boomerang-shaped salamanders, but very cool animals, needless to say.
Bit of a pop culture question. Is Diplocaulus the one that's in Ark?
Oh, for God's sake. Yes, it's in Ark.
Okay.
It looks nothing like it does in Ark.
Oh, of course it doesn't.
It looks horrendous in Ark.
I just trying to remember what it was as well.
Yes, I believe you could use it as one of those personal underwater scooters. No, you couldn't throw it as a boomerang. But that would have been far, far better.
It was much bigger in that game.
Yeah, it was about the size of a crocodile in that.
Yeah.
Like I say, it's only a meter long in reality, so most of that would have been probably tail and a bit of body. But yeah.
Pretty cool.
Shall we move into our emails for this week?
Yeah, all right.
Bing! You've got mail. Ooh, it's an email.
Right, well, we're into this week's emails. To start things off, we're going to look at last week's question, which was, what animal do you think has the best pattern or colours to its body? And we had some good answers to this one. So from the rodent room, a couple of rodent entries that they've said: the maned rat, Lophiomus imhansui, or the zebra mouse, Lemniscopius barbarus. I have butchered both of those scientific names, but I do know that the maned rat is possibly one of the coolest rodents around because it's the only poisonous rodent. It has poisonous glands on the side of its skin, which it then grooms onto its almost porcupine-like quills on its back, making it unpalatable to other animals to try and eat it. So really cool choices there.
That's cool. Jen Babs, one of our Patreon supporters, she has sent us a comment saying, I was going to go with zebra, which would be a good choice, but then Maz, my office buddy, and I lost a long time looking at sea slugs or nudibranchs.
Yeah,
some of them are really cool. That blue dragon one is awesome.
Yeah, and you've also got the Spanish dancer as well.
Yeah.
So our very own Drew has put a difficult one. We're very lucky enough to share the earth with wondrously experimental coat/skin patterns of the giraffe, clouded leopard, genets, a plethora of lizards, snakes, frogs, and fish. But I don't think anything can top a whale shark.
No.
I do disagree with that. And I would say I think birds beat a whale shark in a lot of ways, but that's just me.
I remember whale shark was one of my three.
Clouded leopard as well.
Leopard was one.
And I think you settled on a fish.
Yeah, I think I did. No, no, I don't think so because whale shark would.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Anyway.
3 different tags, but it doesn't matter. Jan Ashbridge comes to us with the color of the red squirrel is beautiful, and goldfinches have amazing colors and patterns in their feathers.
Oh yeah, goldfinches. Love those. Absolutely gorgeous little birds. Christopher Benjamin Kent has said the greater Argus pheasant, which another really cool bird with incredible patterning on its tail.
Yeah. Your partner has come to us with whale shark. The spots and shimmering are mesmerizing.
They are, yeah. I keep meaning to get. I've asked her a few times now to make. She's very good at crocheting. That's the one. As you may have remembered by the lovely nautiloid that I brought in that time.
Yeah.
I've asked her to make a whale shark.
Oh, that would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Christopher Ackerson has put, I'm guessing the green-tailed sunbird would be a good option, and they are a very pretty bird.
Yeah, they're a cool one. Josie Harrison has said starling.
Yes.
Starlings are beautiful.
Stunning things. And you've really got to see them up close to appreciate their colouring and their patterning.
Yeah.
Robin Clark, the Himalayan monol, I like it. The hawksbill sea turtle and the Asian golden cat. We've responded to that and said, great choice. I think that the monol tops the other two, but the others are stunning. She's replied back saying, reading the other comments, I feel bad for not considering the whale shark. I think the whale shark's getting a lot of love here today. There's not too many choices to choose from. Sorry. There are too many choices to choose from.
Which is quite right. By the way, if you like whale sharks and their patterning, Drew has done awesome artwork for the cupboard, and it can be found as a t-shirt on Teemill.
Very true.
So then Robert Preston has said rainbow wrasse, which I reacted to that one myself with a wow reaction, because I completely didn't think of rainbow wrasse, and they are really cool.
Any of the wrasses, they tend to be quite
colourful,
quite standout, flamboyant fish. And a lot of the time, for not being a tropical species, you know?
Yeah. He actually mentions that he actually caught one in Cornwall.
Yeah,
amazing light refraction.
For a really cold water, you know, I mean, we tend to think of Britain being a very drab, cold place. That is a fish that looks like it's just come straight off the Barrier Reef, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah. That's all of our ones from Facebook. Erin, we got anyone from our YouTube page? YouTube page? Channel. That thing. The comments.
The channel.
Let's go to the comments.
We do. We actually have 2 in the comments. I thought we only had 1, but I've just seen we've got 2. So our first one comes to us from Rose Lee 9961. And they say, with this week's question of which animal do I think has the best patterning and colouring, I'll be hearkening back to a previous answer of mine. At first will be kind of vague, but I'll give it examples by what I mean again. It's when felids have a yellow-orange base coat covered with dots, stripes, and splotches. I remember this. She said about clouded leopards and jaguars having a very kind of primitive kind of feel to them. Yeah. Some key examples of this are jaguar, ocelot, leopard, and serval. I find that sort of patterning, colouring elegant in the simplest of terms. Perhaps I'm tying the creature's abilities too much into the pattern colour. But when I see that pattern and colour, I know whatever adorns it is an agile and sleek master of their environment. I can't really.
I will disagree with that slightly.
Yeah.
Whenever you see cats with that colour, however, whenever you see people wearing it, it tends to it loses any sort of specialness. I don't know. It just I don't think I've never liked the look of like animal print.
I've never been
just even like zebra print or any sort of animal print clothing. It just always no.
Also, okay, I agree with Rose Lee on it.
Oh, I agree with her on that. Yeah,
I have another. Just to be pedantic.
It's an episode of being pedantic, I suppose.
Just to be pedantic, I'd also say that Frisian cows have splotches on them, and they're not particularly agile.
I don't know. They can move.
They can move, but I wouldn't say they're agile. Anyway, moving on. Thank you for that comment, by the way. And whenever I read one of Rose Lee's comments, I always get reminded of, like, I don't expect. I kind of expect all of our listeners to have like a powerful grasp of language, but sometimes we get comments from people like Rose Lee, who the comment is very colourful. Do you know what I mean?
Very, very eloquent.
Yeah.
Very verbose.
It's nice to read them. Anyway, the next comment on YouTube comes to us from Renin Ton, who drew that lovely picture for us the other day. And they say, this week's question, I'm going to take the Aaron way out of this and list the best of each taxa.
Fair enough. I like how that's a thing now. I'm going to take the Aaron way out.
Yeah. Out of mammals, I have to argue that a melanistic jaguar, a beautiful black panther that has a next to iridescent look to its coat with the rosettes. That's a nice one.
I suppose, it's a subtle pattern in some ways, but it also stands out.
Yeah.
You can't really miss a very large black cat.
No. Well, I mean, apparently cameras do in the UK.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
If it's to be believed. The red-headed rock agama, as it has lovely coloration. It really does. For fish, I agree with Erin with the beautiful whale shark. Good stuff. And bird-wise, I have a particular fondness for the Polish chamois bantam chicken due to working with an extremely friendly one and help many customers with a fear of birds. That's cool. And a nice ambassador animal. Bantams
are always fun. They're brilliant little.
My mum has bantams.
Really cool little chickens. Really cool. Do you remember the ones that used to be at the park? The one little male.
Yeah.
Who used to jump up on the fence and attack people, even though he's only about that big. He had like the Diplocaulus, and like the amphibian. Well, no, he wouldn't help with that. This tiny little bird who basically wants to attack and kill you. He had the heart of a cassowary.
Yeah.
In the body of a chicken nugget. Had to be kept away from the public.
As for invertebrates, I'm aware I do not know them all to judge. However, there is quite a lot of beauty to be said about golden orb weavers. Yes. As for the minor question in the podcast, yes, it would be amazing if you decide to put it up in the cupboard. Oh, he's referring to his artwork. We've officially got permission from the artist.
Good.
In the cupboard. That's cool. Very, very cool. Thank you.
Get to framing that.
Yeah. We'll get that out then.
Right, well, that was last week's question. This week's question is it's going to go around the oddity that is the Diplocaulus. It's what do you think is the oddest looking creature to have ever existed and why? And this can be alive, dead, not real or imaginary, because that wouldn't be right. It can be extinct or it can be extant, so it can be living or it can be extinct.
What would you go with?
There's quite a few oddities throughout the world, the natural world, and there's some real oddities around today. I think, odd doesn't mean bad as well.
No,
odd can mean just fascinating. There's two that come to mind in my head. First one, actually, there's three. First one would be deep sea isopods, giant marine woodlice, that just the size of a loaf of bread trundling along the deep sea floor, just eating whatever. The second would be Syringosaurus, which we've covered in the past, another Permian era animal, and another oddity as well. This sort of body of a sauropod dinosaur with the head of like some sort of it basically looks like some sort of creation for a Ray Harryhausen monster film. And to be honest, it even looks like some of the ones. It always gives me the same sort of thought of in the first Ghostbusters films, the sort of hellhound things that Rick Moranis and Sigourney Weaver turn into. They kind of have that look to them almost, of Zool.
I kept wanting to say Ellen Ripley.
Yeah. It would have been a very different film if she'd have been in it.
It's the same actress.
No, I know, but the character, I mean.
Right, I see.
Get away from you. But the third one is also the third choice that I'd have is another prehistoric one, and that's the Anomalocaris.
It's almost in the name there, isn't it?
Anomalous shrimp, yeah. The final one I'd go for would be Opabinia, which is a creature that's got 5 eyes, looks like a species in Star Wars, just minus the weird long trunk that it's got out the front for grabbing things. Would have only been about that long. Like one of those times when nature basically was experimenting, we'll have a bit of this and a bit of that, and just bolt it all together.
A chimera.
Yeah. I mean, it was at the point where everything was a new idea, I suppose, in the Cambrian, So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of oddities. What would you go for?
I really don't know, because every time I think of an answer, I think of several other species that actually make it kind of not weird. Like the first thing that came to mind was Saiga antelope.
They're pretty cool.
Very cool, but not particularly odd looking, because the thing that makes them odd is like the proboscis like snout.
Yeah.
But then you realise that proboscises are found in the tapir kingdom, and they're found in the elephantids. So the mammoth stretching back.
Their nose isn't for the same reason.
No, I know, but we're not talking about the reason. We're talking about the weird look, right?
Yeah.
So then I got to thinking about. I don't even think Spinosaurus is a weird looking creature.
He's just a big theropod
with a sail. Well, we've seen sail in Dimetrodon and in
Arizonosaurus.
And was
Edaphosaurus.
Yeah. And sails reappear.
Yeah.
So I really don't know. You can even stretch that to some of the stegosaurids.
Yeah.
Because it's not one continuous sail, but you've got plates that are kind of similar. You could go to spikes, you could go to horns, like not Triceratops, but the Ceratopsid family. But then you've got horns around today, rhinos, for example. So I'm really struggling with this, actually.
I think you've got to pick ones that just look odd, like naked mole rat or
naked mole rat would be one, a good one.
Because if you see other members of the mole rat family, they just look like a shaved one.
Yeah. Okay, so naked mole rat is a good one. I think that will be my third place one. I think second place would be perhaps nudibranchs. We've already mentioned in this episode. I think first place might actually be, because it takes something that the rest of the family has, but makes it like crazy weird. Probably the proboscis monkey.
Yeah, that's an oddity.
Huge snores.
Seems to be a lot of noses coming into this. But yeah, there's a lot of options you could play around with for this. And like I say, nature is nothing but odd, but odd is good. Why be normal? There's no point in that. So yeah, you can put that.
What even is normal?
Exactly. So you can put your answers in the comments on our Facebook page or on our YouTube comments to let us know what you think is the oddest creature. And that leads us nicely into our emails for this week. Aaron, what do we got?
We do actually have a couple of emails.
Yeah.
So our first, it's not actually an email, it's actually a YouTube comment, this one. In fact, they're both YouTube comments.
That's fair enough.
But it comes to us from Mr. Wildlife Watcher. And he says, Wibble, which I'm assuming is a Blackadder reference, because I don't know what it means, and you kept saying it. So Wibble.
It's
the only Blackadder reference I can remember is and I can't remember it now.
It's Blackadder's address. It's a small cottage outside of the main capital city on Mars, Wibble. So when he's trying to
population, that's what I remember. That's the one I remember. When he's
from the dictionary episode.
He keeps making up words to go into
sausage. My sincerest contrafibulations.
Contrafibulations. That's it. Yeah.
Yes, I might know many of the references.
Like I said, I always enjoyed it, but I never got a chance to actually watch it like properly. But that dictionary episode is my favourite one that I've seen.
The correct way to, do you know the biggest thing I find crazy about people watching Blackadder's third or Blackadder Goes Forth is people then realizing Hugh Laurie's in it, and then realizing that Hugh Laurie is British. Because the amount of people who go, oh my God, is he British? I thought he was American.
Yeah, because he's
in. I mean, House is a very good series and everything, but it's no Hugh Laurie as the Prince, or in Blackadder Goes Forth. It's just not the same. He'll always be the Prince George in Blackadder's third.
He's an incredible comedian, but as with a lot of comedians, really good dramatic actor.
Yeah,
I'd actually like to. Hugh Laurie's one of those. I don't often do like fan castings of stuff, but Hugh Laurie's actually a face I'd like to see in the MCU. I can't think of who yet.
I can imagine he could be a very silly version of Jarvis. As a very silly version of oh God, what's he called? Jarvis then becomes Vision. I just see him as like Paul Bettany seems like a much more serious version of Hugh Laurie.
Great. I can't wait for that.
I'd swap the two out and just have Vision, sort of acting as Hugh Laurie.
I think there's a place in the MCU for Hugh Laurie. Anyway, we've gone on a lot of nerdy stuff on this episode.
If we're going to throw that in there, next Wolverine needs to be Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
Height accurate.
Yeah, that's true. We get some accuracy in there. So the other comment comes to us from I'm not sure how to say your username, so I'm just gonna chuck it out. Oh no, that's how stupid am I? I see it now.
It's salesman.
Nepalese man.
Oh, Nepalese.
So Nepalese man 1010. Sorry about that. I don't know why I couldn't read that. So Nepalese man 1010 says, I used to see up to 30 adders in one day in the spring in the early 70s. Now I'm very lucky if I see one. Even in the New Forest, their populations have plummeted. Very sad. You're quite right. Actually, you basically anecdotally proved the point that I was making last week, that these guys are disappearing at a considerable rate.
And that's prime adder habitat, the New Forest as well. The amount of sort of heathland around there is prime adder habitat.
Yeah.
That some good comments there.
Yeah.
That also neatly leads us into our Patrons for this week.
Every week, we like to give a little love back by shouting out the names of our wonderful Patreon supporters.
That's right. These are the cupboard dwellers who are kind enough to support us through a monetary contribution, for which we are eternally grateful and grateful beyond words.
And those people are, of course, Fogtober, Jen Greenhall, Connie P, Chelsea McKee, Nick to Nick,
Owen Cox,
and Matt Geddy.
Guys, your financial contributions are actively helping us out here in the Natural History Cupboard in a myriad of ways, including developing our new studio, planning excursions and being able to go out and film on location, considering technical upgrades and actually making the jump from a solely audio-based podcast to the now growing YouTube channel. And we really can't thank you enough for that.
Now, we appreciate all of our cupboard dwellers and the support you offer us through listening, liking, sharing, and subscribing. But if you feel we've earned it and you're considering joining our Patreon, there are two options through which you can do so.
That's the Nature Nerds and the Animal Ambassador tiers, which you can find on the Patreon website or links through our social media as well. And each one having different benefits for you to enjoy.
And now back to Gareth and Erin in the studio.
And a massive thank you to our Patreons there. So that pretty much brings us towards the end of this episode. I did want to just add on a few other things. So we are nearing the finals of our creature showdowns at the moment. So I thought I'd give you a slight update on that.
Yes, please.
And one other final thing that is also connected to these creatures as well. And it's something that I failed to mention at the beginning of the episode. So we are now almost down to the final 16 creatures. We are looking at an interesting spread of species. It's taken quite a while, and they've been happening daily on our Facebook, Instagram, and our TikTok pages. So we've seen a lot of them battle it out, and we should be down to those final ones. So it's going to start getting a bit more interesting. But some of the animals that have made it through to this final group include the piranha, the Thylacospilus, the Dinocyrus, Indian ringneck, Goodfellow's tree kangaroo,
Nice.
That one came through today. We've actually had, I believe, the Gurnard beat the Jaguar, although I do need to
Whoa.
count on that one.
Whoa.
So don't quote me on that one yet.
Potential upset.
Narwhal absolutely skewered the vampire spider. Pine Marten, you'll be glad to know, actually, I'm a little bit sad because it beat the alligator to come through, but the osprey has beaten the platypus. So there's some interesting ones that have come through there. We've still got a few more matchups to go, but by the time you're seeing this episode, we will be down to our final 16, which should be quite interesting. So, yeah, keep a watch out for that on our social media, where that's going up daily, where you can cast your vote for your animal to go through. Not making any hints or anything. Yeah, anyway. So the other final thing, which is definitely worth throwing in there, Drew has been working tirelessly in the background, using the images of which he has lovingly crafted for each one of these creature features. And he's been working on something, a project that I was helping him test out the other night as well. He's been making a card game. Now, this potentially is still very much in the early stages, but potentially could dominate the card game industry in years to come. So, next Pokemon card. No, basically a very cool game that uses the creatures that we've done over the years in the cards themselves. So having special abilities based on what they do in the natural environment. To be able to win rounds and then and play against each other. At the moment, it's only a digital version because it's virtual, because it's obviously easier to do that. But at some point, we are going to try and make some physical copies for us to play. But digitally, we've been playing it to just sort of test the concepts. It's still very early stages, but he has spent a lot of time and a lot of effort making these cards quite unique. Some of them with rather nice, fun, sarcastic comments at the bottom about their abilities. But yes, it was fun to play, and I can tell you now that using a combination of the Lystrosaurus, an Orca, and the Thylacine, I was able to absolutely dominate the game. So there's an odd combination for you to end on. So yeah, keep watching, because you never know. This may actually be out there at some point, which would be really cool. So yeah. Well, that pretty much brings us to the end of this week's episode. So big thank you, Aaron.
Thank you very much.
And big thank you to you at home for joining us. And we'll see you next time here in the Natural History Cupboard. Bye.
Bye.
So, Aaron, I threw a Diplocaulus a few years back, and I now live in constant fear if I did throw it or not. But I think eventually it'll come back to me. It's bad, I know.